I mentioned in the previous session about the word for holograph. There's a hologram and there's a holograph. As we mentioned, the word gram comes from the Greek word grammaton, where we get the word grammar, and it's something that's drawn or written. But a holograph, this is out of the dictionary. Think about this definition, because this is what the alphabet is in Paleo-Hebrew. A document as a letter, a deed, or a will, wholly, completely, in the handwriting of the person from whom it proceeds and whose act it purports to be. And in the civil law and the systems based on civil law, a holograph writing needs not be attested to by subscribing witnesses, a notary seal, or anything else to be authenticated, but is said to prove itself. That's what this Paleo-Hebrew alphabet is Yahweh's holograph. At common law, a holographic document, that's in the handwriting of the person who's writing it, concerning themselves, has no superior validity. And I'm suggesting that the proof that this Paleo-Hebrew alphabet is Yod-He-Vav-He's holograph, the Creator's holograph, is because it's keyed, this is the witness, you might say, that's self-embedded, it's keyed to the Mishkan, the 7 days of creation sequence, and the festivals of Leviticus 23. Those three things very specifically came from the other side of the creation event, the Aleph side of the Bet. Bet, again, being the very first letter in Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning, created Elohim. Et hashemayim ve'et. That word et is Aleph Tav. It's not translated. So in English, you see, Elohim created the heavens. There's no Aleph Tav, but it's Aleph Tav the heavens and Aleph Tav the earth. The point is, the very first letter of Bet in Bereshit is an enlarged letter Bet. It's one of the anomalies that Monty Judah talks about being the jots and tittles. The anomalies, like the dots above the word in Deuteronomy 29:29, that these things that are not revealed, well, those are of Elohim. Only he knows what he didn't tell us. Deuteronomy 29:29 says, but what is revealed, hey, is for us and our children, which is the word lenu velabenu, for us and our children. That word has dots above it, in order to keep the words of this Torah. Now that's in Deuteronomy 29:29. So I was suggesting that you read Deuteronomy 28, where it talks about the blessing and the curse, and then goes into Deuteronomy chapter 32, which is the Song of Moses. I'll get to that in a minute. I just want to go on about this holograph. Being that the Hebrew alphabet, from this Paleo perspective, is written and coded to the sequence of the revelation of the Mashiach, being that each one of the letters describes him. Each one of the letters is Yahweh's oath, his sworn oath. It describes the blessing and the curse to his people, how to come back to him, what's the obligations of those who would be his people, what he will do for his people. It's all these things, and it's keyed to the 7 days, which is the same pattern as the 7 festivals, which is the same pattern as the Mishkan, and then Yeshua, in the Sermon on the Mount, talking about the Beatitudes, it fits the same pattern, and what's normally called the Lord's Prayer is also the same pattern, and many other places from Genesis all the way through to Revelation, including the 7 churches and the first 5 chapters of the book of Revelation, on and on. Virtually every book talks about these same matters. The word for hollow, as in holograph, is the Greek word for whole, W-H-O-L-E, meaning complete. So the particular interesting word, why I'm going on about this Greek word grammar, or grammaton, is in 2 Corinthians 3:6, this word is used. Now, I was at a conference once, and I heard a certain speaker say this phrase. He said, so now we know that the letter kills. I thought, what? No, it doesn't. These letters are life. He went on to his sermon, but it struck me. We know that the letter kills? Well, that's the translation. In 2 Corinthians 3:6. It's like, how can that be? These letters are life. They're living letters. They're the expression of the creator of life, who himself can't die, other than the fact that he sent a certain form that could, which is a whole other matter. But he couldn't die. He can't die. He's the living one, the one who causes himself to exist, which is what the word Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh means. And if Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is revealing himself, his identity, and his intention, and speaking life to exist through these letters, in words spelled by these letters, in the entire oath of the promise of life, the covenant of life, these words at the end of the song, Chaim et ha'olam. In the Psalms it says, Yahweh commands the blessing, Chaim et ha'olam. Live forever. As a matter of fact, for what it's worth, this Zitziot here, I took the colors of life, green, and have blue threads, 4 different colors of blue. He said tie Zitziots with a blue thread. And remember that I made this place, and I told you how it works, and I'm telling you what the rules are, and I spelled out the words, Chaim et ha'olam. Live forever. That's the blessing that we get when we acknowledge his ways. How can it be that in this verse in 2 Corinthians say that we know the letter kills? It's in the translation. So I went back and I took Strong's Concordance, and I looked at an interlinear under that verse, and it says something about the ministry of death in letters. And that word letters is grammaton. Grammaton is where we get the word gram, like telegram, and gramophone, and hologram. A gram is something written or drawn. And typically when you write or draw, you scratch into it, so it has to do with engraving. Well, what's this ministry of death in letters? Well, the word ministry there, depending on the translation of the New Testament that you use, is the same word as administration. We were in Israel, and we went up with Todd Bennett to this one place where there was an old Roman fortress by the Sea of Galilee, looking over the mountain. And coming up the backside, there was barbed wire. And there's a sign stuck in here that says, do not go past this because it is a minefield. And there was a little bit of barbed wire, and it was all broken over. You could have walked right over. But apparently, in the recent wars that Israel has had with its neighbors, the place has been laced with mines, and you can't see them. They're camouflaged. But the sign says, hey, don't go there! You'll blow up, you'll lose your legs! Do not go there, you will die! That sign was the administration telling you where death is. But it's been translated to tell us that if we regard the Torah, that's the administration, the ministry of death in letters, and the letters kill. So stay away from the letters. That's what we've been told. It's not true. If you're going to read the New Testament, you better know how to read, or else you're not going to know what it really says. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. There's 2 letter Heys. The Creator, the Yod is the hand of the Creator. His expression, remember the respiratory tract, the picture? The breath, the breathing, the ruach. The word ruach, look in the Red Dictionary, it means to expand, to spread out, to open the windows and let the wind blow through, to ventilate. To expand what the Creator made. He put man and breathed into man and expanded the clay form with breath of life. Everything that is hay is the Creator's breath of life to expand your being in this world and in the realm to come, according to his self-revelation, his own breath, his own Aleph that he determined from before the creation to give access to his creation, which is us. And it's in these letters. It's in what he gave us in the whisper of Devarim. The words, the matters, the things. That's the word Devarim. Yeshua came as the expression of the Word made flesh. The Vav man is the incarnation of the Hey, the open revelation of the Yod. And when he left, he says, I will not leave you empty, forsaken, comfortless. I will send you the Comforter, the Ruach, the Hey, who will express to you, who will lead you in the ways of the truth, which looks just like this, which is the Torah, which is the expression of the Creator. Yod He Vav He. The Creator breathed into man and gave him expression, revelation of everything that would bless him, that he should do to be strengthened, to be made solid, to stand, to live unto eternity. Yeshua came embodying that as the archetype, the iconic figure of the perfection of the Zadi, which means righteousness, which is the pure expression, like white linen, without stain, without deviation, without going wicked, which means twisted, which is astray, which is why the word wick is twisted. It is not twisted, it is yashar, the straight power. Yashar, Yod Shin Resh, is the first, we talked about this the other day. Yod Shin Resh is the first three words of Israel. El, power and strength. The power and strength is in the straight path that he told Israel, this is how you be my people. The word Aleph, Hey, Bet, Hey, Ahava is the word love. Why is that Ahava? Why should love be Ahava? In English, we get the word love. It sounds like phonetically Lamed Bet. Lamed Bet is the word for heart. It's pronounced love. In Hebrew, it's the word for heart. All heart, Caleb. Kaf Lamed is the word for all. Lamed Bet is the word for heart. So part of the way that Hebrew works is that you can, like I said, you can take the first half of the word and the second half. Kaf as a prefix means like, so like the heart, or all heart. What's Aleph He Bet He? Well, here's the Aleph revealed. But He Bet means, look in the Red Dictionary, it means to give. The He is the expression at the end, is to make it open, and Bet He, if you read in the Red Dictionary, means in her, or with her, or among her. The letter Bet means these various different things, and He at the end means her. So this He Bet simply means to give. A as a prefix means I will. Aleph He is the plan revealed. The plan from the beginning is revealed in what he gives her, in her, to her. Her who? Yahweh's woman, his bride. He talks about Israel and Yehudah being the one he was betrothed to. He will give her what? It's in the plan. Everything in the alphabet is what he said he'd give us. Living words. There's another matter, if I can find where I wrote it here, regarding the word that's translated the Ten Commandments. Literally the phrase Ten Commandments. If I can find it here. Should have had that written down where I can easily grab it. Don't see it. Basically what it means, the word for ten means to enrich or make wealthy. Is the word for ten translated ten. And the word commandments is the word devarim, which are the words, the matters, the things. And one way you can read that is what is in the Ark of the Covenant are the words concerning the matters which will enrich your life and make you wealthy. They were done away with? The law has been done away with? So what do we get if it's been done away with? It says right there in Judges chapter 2. The whole book of Judges is a repetition of the syndrome. Yahweh blesses them. His people go, hey, this is great. They forget him because they don't teach their children. That's what he said. Because these words are not handed down from generation to generation. And what did he say? You will think of these matters when you lie down, when you raise up. You will teach them diligently to your children. You will write them on your doorposts and on your gates. Why? So that you will think of them, where the Zitziot thread with the blue thread. Why? So that you will look at it and you will remember to keep my words, so that you will do them. Why? Why doesn't he just give it to us when we ask? Because his legally bound contract with his people is, it's a boomerang gimel. You do it, and it'll come back. You can't just pray and ask him to do it and figure, well, he's said to pray, so we'll do it. He said, this is the way it works. We have gotten the system ripped off from us. We haven't been told how it works. What he says is, you keep my words, and this is what I will do. And it's what's in between the inverted noons. He'll chase away our enemies. He'll make nature behave for our good, and will leave a pleasant, decent life that looks like simple nature, as we were talking in the car earlier. Don't we just want peace? Don't we just want a peaceful life? Don't we just want to go out and plant our gardens and enjoy the flowers and have a nice rain instead of a tsunami, and have our enemies chased away by the hornets that he sends? That would be pretty nice. Why don't we have it? Oh, let's read Deuteronomy 32. That's why we don't have it. Interestingly enough, we talked about the anomalies, the jots and tittles, the enlarged letters, the small letters. If you look in Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter, or verse 6, the very first letter is the letter Hey, and it's enlarged, all by itself. It's not the first letter of a word. It's not the ending letter. It's all by itself. It's a total anomaly, and it's just standing there. And what it says is it to Yahweh that you do this, O vile and unwise people? Huh? What? Me? Who are you talking to? Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. This is the song of Moshe. And may the earth hear the words of my mouth. May my teaching drop like rain, may my utterance flow like the dew, like storm winds upon vegetation and raindrops upon blades of grass. When I call out the name of Yahweh, ascribe greatness to our Elohim. The rock, perfect is his work, for all his paths are justice. And that word justice is either zadikah or mishpat, but it means doing the right thing by each other, which is the dalet, which is the root, the heart of chesed, which is the door to everything else he said. An Elohim of faith, or faithfulness, speaking of which, is where you get the word amen. The word amen is aleph, mem, nun, which means I will bring forth the impartation. Remember, like between the inverted nuns, you turn it upside down and you don't get this, but you do it right, and that's what you get. Mem is like the womb of birthing. Nun is like a lightning bolt. Aleph mem means if or on condition of. It's a metropolis, it's a mother, it's a city. Red Dictionary talks about all this. So here you say, what is the word amen? It's translated faith, if it's amunah, or hey amun. If you have a hey in the beginning of the word or a hey at the end of the word, it's still the same word, aleph mem nun. Translated faith or faithfulness. Abraham believed, that's the word amen. That's a whole other story. But the point is, it means if on the condition of you bring forth what he imparted, what he threw down the noon, what he said to do. If we do with faithfulness, amen, so be it, is what the word means. If we do what he said to do, on that condition, he will impart what he said he'll impart, because he himself is faithful to do what he said he'd do, according to his sworn oath of the contract. An Elohim of faith without iniquity. The word iniquity has to do with twistedness, which has to do with corruption, which has to do with deviating from what he said. Righteousness and fair is he. Corruption is not his, the blemish is his children's. A perverse and twisted generation. Is it to Yahweh that you do this, O vile and unwise people? Huh? What? You talking to me? What did we do? Finish reading the Song of Moses, because what he says is, Deuteronomy 31, verse 21. It shall be that when many evils and distresses come upon it, then this song shall speak up before it, speaking of the land and Israel, speak up before it as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten from the mouth of its offspring, for I know its inclination, speaking of Israel, he's speaking to Moses about Israel, I know its inclination, what it does today, before I bring them to the land that I have sworn. Moses wrote this song on that day, and he taught it to the children of Israel. He commanded Yeshua, son of Nun, that's the same letter, and said, be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the children of Israel to the land that I have sworn them, and I shall be with you. Yahweh's words. The point is, read the Song of Moses. He said, this song will not be forgotten. Has anybody here ever read the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32? A couple people? Read it again. Why? Because what it says is, we're going to go corruptly and get the curse. But then we're going to turn around and get the blessing. We provoked them with non-deities, angered me with vanities. So he provoked us with a non-people, and with a vile nation shall I anger them, is what he says. It goes on talking in verses 39 of Deuteronomy 32. Rico Cortez talks about the priest of war. You got the Prince of Peace and the priest of war. This is where he kind of describes the priest of war. See now that I am he, and no Elohim is with me. He's the only one. I put to death and I bring to life. I strike down and I will heal. There is no rescuer from my hand. For I shall raise my hand to heaven and say, as I live forever, if I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasps judgment, I shall return vengeance upon my enemies and upon those who hate me. I shall bring retribution. I shall intoxicate my arrows with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh. It says down in verse 46, apply your hearts to all the words that I testify against you today, with which you are to instruct your children to be careful to perform all the words of this Torah. For it is not an empty thing for you, for it is your life. And through this matter shall you prolong your days on the land to which you crossed the Jordan to possess it. And then he goes on to say that part of the problem here in verse 51, because you did not sanctify me among the children of Israel, is the reason Moses didn't get in. To regard Yahweh, to sanctify him, the word is kadosh. To make him kadosh. You go back and look at Ezekiel 36:23. If you read through the book of Ezekiel, he talks about all the horrible things that are coming on all the peoples, including Israel, including all their surrounding enemies. And if you look through that verse, and look for the verse, Ezekiel 37 is then the valley of dry bones where Israel is resurrected. You can say, well, is it real graves that are opened and real bones that are put back together and real people coming out to live? Some scholars, rabbis, sages, some of them say so. Is it or not? Is it metaphorical? I don't know. But the point is, things seem to turn around in chapter 37, and it looks like Israel being restored, the kingdom coming back. But there's a fulcrum point where the seesaw tips. It's Ezekiel 36:23. I'll just quote it to you. There's no time to look it up here. What it says is, Yahweh saying, I will make my name great. The word is Shem Hagadol, the great. I will make my name, my great name, Kadosh, which is that word for pure and sanctified and sacred and respected. The word Kadosh, as in Kadosh Kodashim, is in what we call the Holy of Holies, the most set apart, the most exclusive place. I, Yahweh says, will make my great name Kadosh which you, Israel, have profaned, desecrated, made vile, made common. The word actually that he uses there for that word profaned is, I'll show you the way that's spelled. It's spelled het, lamed, lamed. Well, the het, that's basically our letter H, even though the letter E is, the fifth letter is pronounced ha. Our letter H, there's a confusion between the H and the E, which is why the word Eve and Kua and Eva, that's a whole other story. I'm just telling you that this letter He gets confused with the het. But this is an L and an L. Well, if you put the vowel of an E, that's the word hell. You guys have made my great name, and the word name is reputation. You guys, Israel, have made my reputation and my fame, my name, you've made it hell, which is a place of devastation and ruin. And look at the Red Dictionary, that word also means to punch holes into it. It's the same word for a flute, which is the instrument with holes, which is hollowed out. The word means to hollow something out, punch holes into it, drain it out, make it empty, make it worthless, make it vile, make it desecrated, make it something you toss away. And it also means one who is deprived of the priesthood, one who is supposed to be a priest, and it's like, take it away. Don't let him. And it also means a priest of questionable genealogical descent. Suddenly, I remember, sounds like the gospel narrative of Jesus Christ. He was a man who was deprived of the priesthood, though he's supposedly our high priest, and he was supposedly a priest, though he didn't get to be the priest because they deprived him of it, who was of questionable genealogical descent. Born of a virgin, was he a bastard? Hey, they even went to him and said, hey, who's your father? You know, what's going on there? The point is, they punched holes into him and drained him out and considered him vile, profane, and common. Is this verse saying that we, instead of talking about the great Shem of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, that we've told this other story all these years, thinking that we were doing him a favor? Oh, the Torah's been done away with. Oh, there's no covenant. Oh, his words are a ministry of death. The letters, they kill. What have we been saying all these years, thinking we were doing the right thing, but all the while doing something different? Ezekiel 36:23 says, Yahweh speaking, I will make my Shem Gadol Kadosh, which you, Israel, have made halal in the eyes of the nations amongst whom you've been scattered, when you make my name Kadosh in the eyes of the very people amongst whom you've been scattered. That's what we're doing. How do you make his Shem Gadol Kadosh? What's Kadosh? The letter Kuf, like a Q. There's a Q, there's the Kuf. It's to take something and pour out what's in it from a container, as it were. Dalet Shin, douse, to douse something with water, to pour out the stuff that's purely clean, purely of Yahweh. No human contamination, no doctrine, no theology, no other books. What came right out of Yahweh's mouth, that's Kadosh. The high priest had Kadosh la Yahweh, set apart unto Yahweh. See, if we do what he said to do, then he will do his job, which is like, you just get in the car and put the key in, I'm going to light the engines up. Because when he makes his name Kadosh, that's the screaming. But it won't be Israel screaming this time. It'll be Israel's adversaries screaming. That's what he said. It turns the teeter-totter to the other side. He keeps saying the same thing again and again and again. Read the book of Judges. Read the book of Deuteronomy. Look at the Song of Moses. It's in Leviticus. It's in Exodus. It's all over the place. But I was never taught this, going to a Baptist high school, a Presbyterian church. My nephew going to a Christian college was told, do not study. We're not going to study. He weren't told not to study. He said you can study in your own, but they weren't going to study the 3 books. Which 3 books? Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That's where this stuff is. Now, Now, what's going on with that? Why would we be not told? Because I don't think our enemies want the teeter-totter to shift. Because if you look at this statue in Daniel chapter 2 of Nebuchadnezzar's vision, where he was saying, gee, what's going to happen after this? And the Creator gave him the vision, is that the word is the stone hits the feet. We talked about this once before. I'll write it again. The stone is Aleph, Bet, Nun. It's the word Evan, which is stone. The stone hits the Regal, which is Resh, Gimel, Lamed, which is feet or legs. I will, this is the word son, this is the word father. This is the Aleph, Bet, imparted action. Aleph, Bet, engaged. Do what the Aleph, Bet says to do. In the Regal, Gimel, Lamed, it has to do with the Galut. Resh is the prince, the prince of the ways you walk. Got 1 minute left. Regal is where we get the word regular, the regular infantry, the way you walk. It has to do with regulations. It has to do with the regal authority. To do what the Aleph, Bet says to do, altering our regular habits, traditions, and customs that the regal authority has regulated to us as the regular way to walk, which is our Sunday and typical customary holidays. If we start doing what Yahweh said to do, could that be, I think it is, the stone which hits the statue and knocks the thing down and turns it to dust and becomes a mountain that fills the earth and will not yield its sovereignty to another ever again? This is perhaps what we're dealing with here, which is taking the cute little things of alphabet letters and making them Gidolim. It only took one rock to knock down the giant of Goliath that David threw. And look what David said about the Torah. Read Psalm 119. We're upon a break.
It almost seems like to me that, that Yah says he's going to give us a new song. I'm just kind of wondering if that's what he's doing here, is giving us a new song to sing.
The word for song, there's a couple of them. It's shir. So at the end of that Aleph, Bet song, we sing Hashir Shirim. If you look at the word for Song of Solomon in the Bible, the book, it doesn't say Song of Solomon, it says Shir Shirim, which is the Song of Songs. And so Shin, again, looking at the Red Dictionary, Shin Resh is a prince. It's also a patron, a minister, an angel, a chief, a captain. It's a poet. And so my thinking of that is like, well, what is it the duty of all those people to do? It's kind of like that commandment that Yahweh gave Moshe to make these words well clarified. It's like taking a difficult matter and rendering them in such a way that they are simple, that they're clarified, that they're easy to see, and that they're beautiful. Like a nice song. And so the government's job, a good government, a prince, is to do the same thing, to take the difficult matters of running people and to make it a beautiful place to live. For a poet or a singer to do the same thing is to take these matters and turn them into a song, which is why I'm just kind of hijacking the Song of Solomon book and calling the Aleph Bet the Song of Songs, is because to make these things like a bouquet of flowers, these letters, the interesting thing, it says that Yahweh used his finger to write on the tables of stone. If you look in the dictionary under the word for finger, it actually means to paint with colors, like finger painting. And it's like, it's the same word. So if you imagine Yahweh's fingers painted colors and him, this is how you spell words. It's just his different fingers grouped together in different ways. And it's like a bouquet, which is one reason why we left these bouquets up here today is the whispering. So to say, how would you sing a new song to regard his matters as a beautiful bouquet instead of the way we were told that they were instruments of death? It's like, well, if you don't regard them, yeah, that's kind of an instrument of death. But if you do regard them, sing a new song and put these concepts to song and put them together like you're making beautiful patches and things that are reminders. And it's a matter of us exalting in his beauty, and he gave us these letters as the way to, as we said in the week of the Aleph, this is how he determined to reveal his face. The word paneh is face, is pei nun yod, mouth, pei, nun, the living thing which jumps out of, and yod goes to work. He gave us letters and words as the way to describe his face, and that's all he's given us. He said, I didn't give you an image and a form of a man or an animal, male or female, or any creature. You heard a voice. So to turn his voice, which is letters and words, into a beautiful song and a bouquet of images, I believe is sanctifying, making kadosh his Shem Hagadol, which is singing that new song. I would agree with you.
I don't know exactly how to word this, but maybe I can put it across. I love history, and it's amazing to see in the history of the so-called Christian church and of Judaism that there's a parallel path. Judaism was blinded so that they did not see who Messiah was, because if they had seen, they would not have crucified, as Scripture says. And yet, what has happened in the last 2,000 years, Christianity has been blinded to the importance of Torah and Shabbat, so that there's a parallel path, there's a parallel happening. Is this Yahweh's plan? Is Yahweh behind this?
Regarding history, I'm not sure exactly what happened at the Council of Nicaea. However, there are some who have found documentation and have told me that Constantine sent his boys out to scour the earth for various other religions' stories, and they concocted, compiled, consolidated in what became the official doctrines. If that's true, then they did exactly what they were told not to do as the Talmudim. Now the word Talmud is the book that the Jews study, but the word Lamed is like the letter Lamed, which means teach and learn. So Talmud, or Talmudim, is the disciples of those who discipline themselves to teach and learn the Torah. So the Talmud is simply the teachings about the disciples who want to do what the Torah said to do. And what the Torah said to do was not to learn the ways of the pagans. There's no way to know from now, 2,000 years later, to go back to 321, or 325, Council of Nicaea, and say, which things did they gather up from around the world? I used to remember that, hey, we got the greatest story ever told. We got the story like none other as a Christian believer. We have the one story where the creator of heavens and earth, the Spirit without form, took on the form of a man, had 12 disciples, was crucified, died, raised from the dead, ascended into heaven, and he's going to come back. It turns out there's over 20 other stories around the world with that same story. And some of them before the event 2,000 years ago. Now, what do you do with that? I thought we had the exclusive rights to that story as a Christian believer, and comes to find out, was it a compilation? Why should the brother Yehuda look at the Christian gospel and say, I'm not going there? I'll tell you the mysteries in the word Elohim Achrim. Because the word Achrim, I don't know if we have time to get into this. This is a bigger thing. Let me address it briefly. If you look at the second commandment, it says, do not have the gods of others in my face, or do not have any other gods before me. That's the way it reads in King James. The word is Elohim, which is Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. And then here's this nasty word, Achrim. Aleph, Chet, Resh, Yod, Mem. And Yahweh uses this phrase in the book of Judges and all through the Tanakh. He said, because you guys had Elohim Achrim, this is what's going to happen to you. And he says it so many times. And the reason I know that is because I found this phrase, what does this mean? And then when my eyes were keyed to it, it's like, hey, you see this? Hey, you see this? Hey, hey. Do you see that this is what really ticks him off? Why should Yahweh be so disturbed over this verse? It's the second commandment. The first one is, I am, Anochi, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, I'm the guy that brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage and slavery. You will have no Elohim Achrim in my face. Well, the word is alpane, and the word is ayin lamed, pei, nun, yod. But remember, we said pei, nun, yod, which is the word for face, can also mean word. It's the thing that jumps out of your mouth and makes things happen, goes to work, causes things to happen. Ayin lamed is typically used for, it means above, next to, at, concerning, together with. It means yoked to, in reference to. You will have no Elohim Achrim in reference to or yoked to my face or my word. Elohim is a mighty one, translated as God. The word Achrim is translated as others. It's because this means other, acher. And this is the plural. So it is translated other gods. But if you look up in the Red Dictionary, the word acher also means to come later on, in the future. Do not have the mighty ones in the future of others that are yoked to my face or my words. But the word aleph het is also a brother. The letter resh is an exalted man. Het resh is where we get the word it's char, which is the same word as het vav resh, which is white, which is like hoary-headed, like a white-haired gentleman has nobility. It has to do with a noble man, and the word reshod mem is where we get the word ram or Roman or reem ox, which is this huge ox that is extinct now. Julius Caesar killed the last one. This giant, this exalted, noble man who's one of your brothers. Who's Jesus Christ? An exalted noble man who is one of your brothers, who is yoked to, if not the very manifestation of, my face, my words. To say that Jesus Christ, then, this exalted noble man of one of our brothers, who is yoked to the manifestation of his face, and he's our Elohim, and he says, second commandment, thou shalt not have one of these. And every time you do, all through the book of Judges and all through the Tanakh, you guys are in big trouble and you're kicked out of the covenant. Should it be any wonder for Brother Yehuda to say, no way, we're not going there? Well, then who do we say that the Mashiach is? If I say he's an Elohim Achrim, I should stand condemned according to the Torah. But if I look at the alphabet and say, he's the guy described by these 22 letters, it's a bit of a conundrum. What are we saying? This is the root of the matter. This is the root, this is the crux of the matter of the discrepancy, of the confusion, of the animosity between Yehuda and Christianity, or between the houses of Israel. This is a very serious matter. And if you don't know what this word means, Elohim Achrim, it doesn't matter. Now you're just arguing with doctrines. I'm right, you're wrong. Nope, you're right, I'm wrong. Nope, yep, you're right. Like a couple of little kids squabbling. But if you look at this means, I'll tell you this. When I made a comment before that he never said to worship him, the man, camouflage. The reason I'm wearing this is because the man came camouflaged. What Yeshua said to Peter, to the Talmudim, the disciples, he says, hey, by the way, boys, who do people say I am? They said, well, John the Baptist got his head lopped off, but some people think you're him, that maybe he escaped. But some people think maybe you're Elijah. Some people maybe even think you're Moses. He says, enough of all that. Who do you guys think I am? And Peter says, well, you're the son of the Elohim. You're the Mashiach. And Yeshua said, flesh and blood did not show you that. My Father revealed it to you. He whispered. The blatant was disguised. You, Peter, did not figure that out. But you go, wait a second. Wasn't it Nathaniel who said, or one of the other guys, James and John, said, hey, we have found the Messiah. It's like, I don't know what those guys said. I don't know what to believe in reading the New Testament for the exact thing that happened. I don't know what to believe because I see some discrepancies. All I can say is this. I'm not trying to throw the New Testament out, but what I'm saying is that anything that lines up with this Aleph Bet being the Kadosh, Devarim of Yod He Vav He, Bar Hayatov, well clarified, is Yeshua, the salvation of Yahweh to redeem and save and deliver us from Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the creator of heavens and earth, himself. Anything that is in discrepancy with it is questionable, if not completely to be thrown away. Now, those are fighting words, but I think that's what this says. And all I can say is I've got to be darn careful not to make my salvation an Elohim Achrim, because I'm stepping on the second commandment and I'm stepping right into the trap used dozens of times of Yahweh expressing to his people his heart and says, do not go there. Because you went there, all this bad stuff happens. And then you say, well, what's happened in the last 2,000 years? If we've made him an Elohim Achrim, we deserve the curse. And we deserve our enemies upon us. And we have to look at the Holocaust and the Inquisition and say we deserve it. We have to look at everything that's happened. We have to look at the entire world being messed up. And he says, the land will spew you out. And then we have to look at the world in great convulsions at this moment saying, it's what he said. I don't know what will happen if we turn back, but I just know we've got to turn back. And the purpose of reading these things is to say, turn back to what? Do what? When? Why? Where? How? Now? With what fervor? He says, I am a jealous deity, Elohim. The word jealous is the same as zeal. Zeal for his word. And he says in other scriptures, he says, he is looking for people who have the same zeal for his word as he does. And Yeshua himself was consumed with the passion and the zeal for the Devarim, the words of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. He says, I only say what I hear him saying and do what I see him doing. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not doing my own thing. That's what Yeshua said. If he made up another religion, if Apostle Paul made up a new religion, countered this, they both ought to be stoned. You look in Deuteronomy and it says, if a prophet comes or a dreamer of dreams and the stuff comes true, if it doesn't come true, it's not of Yahweh, get rid of it. But if it does come true, if he leads you to another way than the way that Yahweh has already disclosed, this is a test. A Nun Psalmic, hello, watching, hearing, is anybody paying attention to the Nun Psalmic? This is a test, Israel, to see if you will quickly depart from the way that I have told you to go in. What happened in the New Testament? Hey, miracles, signs and wonders. Oh, it must be a new way. Let's go. We fell into the trap. All I can say is people could disagree. People can believe anything they choose to believe. I choose to figure out what these words mean and choose to believe that. I'm trying to figure out what that is. I'm trying to compare what these words mean with what the dictionary says. This guy, this brother of Yehuda, spent 80 years studying language, and the last 10 years of his life, after being in a concentration camp in World War I and a rabbi in Poland, he finally put together this treasure of the Hebrew language. Nobody could do this before. Nobody had the understanding of this paleo thing before. I didn't make this up. It's like, oh, there it is. It has to do with hearing the voice. There's the big hey in Deuteronomy 32. There's a couple verses I've seen a little tiny hey. It's like, is that the whisper? Pay attention, look. The big hey, that's a loud voice. Hey, you guys! We got to listen. But when we're told not to listen, we're told don't look there. It's like the Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to what you see behind the curtains. It's been hidden. That's the very thing we're supposed to be paying attention to. Any other questions? Oh, Keith had it.
Come on, Keith. Because when you're talking about the hey, you were talking about grammar, and I see the letter 5, and I go 5. Well, then the gematria, isn't that the number? And I'm going, well, then that's grace, and so I'm trying to go grammar, hey, gematria 5, that's grace. Can you tie the hey and the grace 5 together?
The fact that Yahweh would choose to reveal the truth to his people, not because he had to, because he wants to, his grace. I remember hearing as a Christian way back when, Grace, God's riches at Christ's expense. That's one way to render it from a Christological perspective. But what really is grace? If you look at the word in Hebrew, it's chet nun, is hen. It's where we get the word in English for con. Genghis Khan and those guys. It's like a warlord. It's the guy who had all this provision, and if you were out by yourself and you had no way to protect yourself or no way to provide for yourself, you go to the warlord and say, hey, can I camp overnight with you? And if the guy extends to you his grace of all his provisions, not at any expense to you, and says, sure, you can camp here. I'll make sure that you're safe and give you of my food and give you a place to sleep. And that's the concept of hen. It's also the place for camping or to reside down tranquilly. Is that the same root of that word? It's also pretty similar, this being where we get the letter H in English, being the 8th letter, is where you get the word hen. And Yeshua said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have taken you under my wings." And if you ever watch a mother hen with the babies, and he said, "But you would not." And so on account of our own behavior, how many people want to pillage the kingdom for its goods and not even regard anything about it? Oh, what are the blessings? Oh, forget everything. We have responsibilities and obligations. There's another verse here, we don't have time to get into it, where Moses was saying, this is the stuff that Yahweh wants you to do. And there's this whole list. And it's like, gosh, this whole list of stuff. Maybe I wrote it down here. It'd be worth reading. If you read it as a list, it's like, come on, why is he doing all this stuff to us again? He's making all these things so hard. But if you read it closer, oh, here it is. Deuteronomy 10:12. Moshe, this is what Moshe says. Deuteronomy 10, verse 12. Now, O Israel, what is it? What does Yahweh your Elohim ask of you? Only to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to go in all his ways, to love him, to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul, to observe the commandments of Yahweh and his decrees, which I command you this day for your benefit. What's the big deal? I mean, really, what are his commandments and decrees? As we said, chet kuf is the word commandment. Mishpat has to do with doing the right thing, which is justice to one another. Quit ripping each other off, and if you break something, paying back for what you broke, an eye for an eye, value for value. Quit lying to each other, stealing from each other, doing everything the banks and the creditors are doing to all of us. Stop doing that. Quit going around the world making wars, stealing everybody else's resources just because we can. In who do we trust? In who do we have emun? Emunah, faithfulness. Whose charge are we faithful to? I don't think it's Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, in spite of what we write on our money. Fear him, regard him, look. The word fear is Yod-Resh-Aleph. Resh-Aleph has to do with a visual aspect of, do you see him? I'll tell you, if you can recognize these letters, that is playing into what the word fear, which is Yirah, means. To see is also the same word for fear. So part of what we're going through is the orthography, the orthograph. The ortho means like orthopedic, which is the straight, like a skeletal structure, and graph has to do with drawing. So orthography is the way that something is drawn properly. If you look at the orthography of these letters, both in Paleo and modern, so that you can recognize what those letters mean, then like Jamie said, when you see a word, you're not just, did I remember my lessons? Can I translate what that word means? You're looking at the word as, like I said, Yahweh's fingers painting colors like a bouquet. This could be a word. Can you appreciate the beauty? Can you yirah? Can you see? And then can you see with the fear, the honor, the respect, the regard? He's saying, can you appreciate the beauty of how he's revealed himself? The quiet whisper, the passive voice, not just the shouting voice, but the camouflage voice. The word begad, we mentioned this before. It's like, why was Yeshua not recognized by the Jews, by Yehuda? We were told as Christians that it's like, those Jews, by golly, they killed the Messiah. The word aleph being a prefix meaning I will, bet, gimel, dalet, bagad, bagad. Read in the Red Dictionary. It means clothing like camouflage like in English, baggy clothing. It camouflages the true form. He came in disguise, shouting, but yet disguised. Look at him. Who is he? Oh, we can't tell. Is he a prophet? Is he some dead guy come back? Who is this guy? We don't know. Let's cut him up. Same thing they did. You're mentioning what they did to the Torah. So here's this little puzzle. Yeshua came as the Word made flesh. The Vav man, Haid, right, revealed, as the Word made flesh. So because Yehuda didn't recognize him, they got Esau. The Romans were actually the offspring of Esau. So here you have Jacob and Esau both tearing apart the physical form of the Word, ripping it to shreds, killing it, and burying it. But he came back because the Word is eternal and can't be done away with. The Christians, on account of him, have taken the Torah in writing, on account of the Torah made flesh, taken the Torah in writing, ripped it to shreds, killed it, punched holes into it, tried to drain it out, called it nothing, and thought they buried it. But look, it's coming back if we choose to regard it. Can you hear the camouflage scream? The whispered cry? Any other?
One more.
I think I'm not loud enough.
No, we got it. Go ahead.
Okay, it's amazing that you brought. I'm sitting here looking at this verse and you quoted it. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. It's in Matthew 23, the last few verses. And last week, I was listening to a message, and the translation that the teacher was reading, he said, "You will not see me until you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh.'"
Baruch haba b'Shem Yahweh.
Yes. Okay. What struck me was every translation that I have read says, "You will not see me again." And so I'm thinking, was he saying that they would not see him, understand that he's Messiah, until they say, "Blessed is he who comes"?
One of the things we said last week is that there's a number of verses that sound just like that, that say, "You will not see me until what? What's the pivot point? What's the fulcrum? Until you say," now we have an English thing, but in Hebrew there's even a song, Baruch haba. Baruch is blessed. Haba has to do with the word Yavo, like Monty Judas thing Yavo, which has to do with coming. Bet Aleph, Bet Vav Aleph, Havo, I believe it is. Baruch haba. Bashem means in ha, bet in ha, the Shem name. But it's not just the name. Oh, is he using the right name? This stuff is the word Shem because it's name, fame, reputation, renown, what you occupy yourself with. Read in the Red Dictionary. This whole thing, I maintain, is his Shem. Baruch haba b'Shem Yod He Vav He. And again, people say, "Oh, you're not supposed to use the name." Interestingly enough, if you take the phonetics of the word Hawaii, Hawaii, and you read it backwards, what are the phonetic sounds that you might plug in? Those are Hebrew letters. It's Yod He Vav He, Yawa. It would be Hawaii spelled backwards. Hawaii, Yawa. So, that might be the way you pronounced it, Yawa, Yawa, but it might not. But I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just trying to, if it says, "You won't see me again until you say, Baruch haba b'Shem Yahweh," then if we never say it, it won't happen, right? Isn't that the fulcrum? When you say these words, this will happen. Guess what? If somebody said, "Stand in front of this door and speak this word," abracadabra. Is that occult witchcraft? Hang on. Abracadabra. The door will open. You say, "Look, we can't say that word because it's witchcraft." So stand in front of the door and say, "Open sesame." Open says me. Should the door open? No, because it's keyed to abracadabra. Not open sesame. You can stand there and say open sesame for 2,730 years and it won't open. But here, Let me touch on the word abracadabra, because after all, that's like some kind of a cult. Why do they call it casting a spell? It comes from spelling words, and those who are into the occult arts know that Hebrew is what they call a powerful language. So I'm just going to address this for a minute. Abracadabra. How would you spell that in Hebrew? Abba, Father. Bara, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning created Elohim. This is the word create, as in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bara, ka, the letter kaf means like, as a prefix. Dabir, dalet, bet, resh. Hey, the opening, the revealing of your dabir, which is word. Father, please cause it to be just like you told us and revealed to us was your Aleph plan. For Israel to say, Abba, Barakadabra, is exactly what we're standing here doing. We're standing in front of the sealed door, the Pei, Tav, Chet, and the key, Mem, to open it is to go back to the terms of the covenant and do what he said according to the Mishkan, the pattern of everything that he has in his treasure box. And yet we were told that that's a cult, abracadabra. Don't say that. Well, the door's not going to open until we say, thy kingdom come, Abba, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us for what we have done. Thank you, Abba, for opening your ways to us. B'Shem Yeshua, B'Shem Yahweh, thank you for saving us and redeeming us and delivering us from the lies, the distortion, the crookedness, the ways of our forefathers and our very own personal ways that have scorned and called your things death, when death is what we got for not regarding your ways. Please forgive us and give us life as you promised.